Good morning, MN Diesel. You need an engineer to go on board the vessel tomorrow? Okay. Which vessel is that? L208?
Meet Richard Lee, a 68-year-old senior sales manager. Richard has been working for half a century, 2 decades of which were spent in his current company, and he does not plan to retire anytime soon.
I really have to think what I'm going to do when I'm not working. And actually, I'm very fortunate that when I turned 62, the company offered me re-employment. And since then, every year they have continued to offer me employment until the current stage. And only recently, January this year, they told me that if I want to, I can work 3 days a week. So I thought, why not, So at least this will more or less gear me to semi-retirement and eventually retirement. Then at least I could slowly find what are the things that I can do if I'm not working.
Richard has 2 children and 4 grandchildren. His family thinks he should retire.
Actually, they will more or less keep telling me, Daddy, you shouldn't work and spend more time with the grandchildren. You have been working, you have worked more than 50 years. I think it's time for you to relax. And I always tell them that, if you still can work, why not? I say, especially now, if I work 3 days a week, I can spend more time with my grandchildren and things like that. So actually, they always encourage me to retire.
Working through old age has become commonplace in Singapore. Almost 7 in 10 Singaporeans aged between 55 and 64 are employed, a rate that's among the highest of all nations in the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development.
The trend in Singapore is just a glimpse of what's happening across much of the developed world as families shrink and people live longer, increasing the strain on the government pension systems. South Korea, with its fastest aging population in the OECD nations, has told its employers to provide retirement plans after realizing its pension system could go broke by 2060. Germany and the UK plan to raise its retirement age from 65 to 67.
Singapore hasn't raised the official retirement age above 62, but has mandated companies to offer 3 more years of work to eligible employees when they reach that age. During Singapore's National Day rally in August 2015, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong announced that the re-employment age will be raised from 65 to 67 by 2017.
Take out your IC, Singapore.
Facing an aging society, Singapore planned to increase its population by opening its doors to more immigrant workers.
The new intake of new citizens.
But the proposal was met with backlash due to rising property prices and strains on public transport.
We have a scarce resources in terms of housing, medical, transportation, and so forth. So if you keep on having this inflow of so-called low-cost foreign labor, it's not sustainable. So there has to be a shift towards actually looking at how we can actually leverage more on older workers.
The shift is happening. Growth in foreign employment has been slowing. From over 60,000 in 2011, it fell to a little more than 16,000 in 2014. In the meantime, the employment rate of older workers has increased by 9.1% in the past 5 years. To help businesses adjust, Singapore shoulders part of the cost of hiring elderly workers. Companies can also tap government funds to redesign jobs and human resource systems for them.
In 2015, if employers voluntarily re-employ their older workers from age 65 onwards, that is beyond age 65, the government will provide employers with a wage subsidy, which amounts to up to 11.5% of the monthly wages. So in fact, this will translate to nearly 1.5 months of wages for every eligible worker re-employed.
The government's efforts have paid off. the resident labor force participation rate of older workers aged between 65 and 69 more than doubled over the past decade. One reason the elderly stay in the workforce is the lack of financial security. According to a survey by Toronto-based Manulife Financial Corporation, only 1 in 5 Singaporean investors is confident their pension accounts will meet their retirement needs, and more than half believe their savings are not enough.
The kids are doing well. You don't need to support them.
No, they are supposed to support me.
They support you. They don't need to support you. You also make.
They are not supporting me at all now.
Right.
I think nowadays the younger children very lucky. During my time, as soon as I start work, I got to support my parents.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's the
Nowadays,
Asian
nowadays they don't.
mentality,
They don't
right?
need. I even have to support them.
Do you think that's one of the reasons that you don't want to burden them?
Yeah, I think that is part of the reason. I mean, knowing that now life is quite difficult, everything is so expensive. So we really don't. If we really don't need their money, so we just tell them no need. Leave it to your own family.
Not everyone is doing as well as Richard does. More often than not, older workers are in lower skilled jobs and earn less. According to a report by DBS Bank, majority of the elderly who were employed in 2013 made less than 1,500 Singapore dollars, or a little more than 1,000 US dollars a month. And nearly 2 in 3 of them worked as production and transport operators, cleaners and laborers. With rising life expectancy and low interest rates, many older workers have to work beyond retirement to support themselves. From time to time, Richard would think of what he can do when he eventually retires.
It's more relaxing.
But for now, leaving work is far from his mind.
You said if you can work better, work. What is the biggest pleasure or excitement that the work still gives you?
It's not so much of a pleasure. I've been working for the past
motivation.
more than 50 years. I've been working, and honestly, if you ask me to retire now, I really don't know how I can spend my time. Really. So, like I say, wait till the time comes.
When that time will come, Richard still doesn't know. He says he intends to continue working not only for as long as he can, but also for as long as he is needed.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Bye-bye.